Hey y'all. Today, I wanted to do something a little different. I wanted to talk about the New York Times obsession with painting Harry and Meghan in a bad light. Now, I noticed this some time ago, but in my opinion, I just assumed that they were either Murdoch affiliated or something. I didn't really do any deep diving. I assumed that, or I just said, hey, they know that bigots click on things and they're just trying to capitalize. It's not right, but I'm just going to ignore them and not use them in my videos and not promote anything or click on their links. But today I realized that ever since the announcement came out that Harry and Meghan were moving back to the UK, which again is unconfirmed at the time of recording this, once I realized that they have been obsessively posting about them, and to the point where it's like, damn, y'all kind of are miles ahead of like these stories and everybody else. And when I say miles ahead, I don't mean in information, I mean in quantity. My goodness, 15 in 5 days. Almost all of them are negative. And I was like, Jesus, what is the obsession? It's one thing to be interested. It's one thing to be clued in. It's one thing to be locked in. But what is the obsession? So I did some digging into the New York Times, as well as the show The Crown. And they actually have a connection, which might explain why Harry was portrayed the way he was portrayed in The Crown. I might have had some answers, but I also could just be making a lot of assumptions, and this could be a long shot. But I'm going to just share what I found because it actually cleared some things up for me, because y'all know I was pissed about The Crown. Y'all know, if you watch my royal review, you were probably like, that girl hates The Crown. But we got a lot to get into, so let's get started. Hey y'all. Thank you so much for clicking on my video. And if you're returning, welcome back to my channel. Today, we're going to do things a little bit differently. I know we typically take a look at an article, we dissect it, we give any kind of historical data, I give my opinion, we kind of ping pong over the topic, kind of like kitchen table talk. And I've actually really been enjoying that format, I have to say. But I want to do things a little differently. I'm recording this video very early, or at least way earlier than it's being published, because I just don't want to be ranting in every single video you click on over here. I want us to have fun. I want us to enjoy ourselves. So I'm going to put out a few more videos, and this one's going to come out later in the week. But just for reference, this is being recorded on Monday, August 24th. And so the reason I want to do this video a little different, we're not looking at one article. We're actually going to be looking at 13, not reading them all. But I want to point something out. As of this morning, the New York Times has published well over 15 articles centering Harry and Meghan, with the overwhelming majority being hostile, derogatory, or speculative in tone, or all three. And at first I was like, damn, I've kind of been off the New York Times for a really long time. I haven't used one of their articles in one of my videos for about 2.5 years now. And it's because consistently I didn't like the way they were reporting accuracies or typos, or just an overall hostile tone and extreme speculation. I felt like it wasn't unbiased. I didn't feel like it was ethical. And I just felt like I was doing the tango a little bit much in their inbox, way too much. And I was like, you know what? Let's just not use them anymore. If they can't get it right, screw them. Kind of like The Guardian. After a while, a couple of times it's like, yeah, sure, freedom of speech. People are allowed to offer different tones. But after a while, it became like they were harping. And I was like, oh no, I hate to see you go, especially since you're always using, begging for donations. So it sucks, because when I read one, I donate. But I'm kind of finding that when I'm paying attention to how consistently I'm passing on an article, I'm making a note of how often I'm seeing the same publishers or publications or platforms. And after a while, I'm just not going to look at you at all. You're not going to get any web traffic, because it's not worth picking a needle in a haystack for an unbiased or objective article about Harry and Meghan. If all you're doing is publishing negativity and hearsay and speculation, then you're not going to get any of my energy. And so I've realized that in the past, I'm going to go ahead and say 3 years, I haven't really used any New York Times articles. And it got me to thinking, when I kept just seeing this freaking onslaught of them just pumping out article after article after article, even videos of Harry and Meghan about this move, which I want to be clear, Harry and Meghan have not confirmed that they are moving. Nor has anyone from their team or their spokesperson. I will say I'm leaning more towards this is a true story. This is an official story, or at least it has strong grains of truth, simply because it's such a big story that their spokesperson has yet to come out and deny it. It makes me think that there is heavy truth to it. So I'm just kind of running with it, but I want to be very clear. They have yet, at the time of this video being recorded, confirmed that they are indeed moving to the UK. But that story, that exclusive from People magazine, hit the world by storm, and people have not stopped talking about it. So I get the New York Times wanting to make this part of their content. It would make them an idiot if they didn't. But what's so odd, not even odd as far as like it's unheard of, it's just so damn unethical and ridiculous and unnecessary, is the fact that at this time, within the last 5 days, at the time of recording this, they have published 15 articles, overwhelming majority being negative towards Harry and Meghan. And so I got to thinking, being that it's been so long since I've even looked at them as a viable source or media source, I said, what changed for me? What did it? And so I wondered to myself, are they owned by the Murdoch family? Let me go see. That would explain it. But no, they're actually owned by the Sulzberger dynasty. Now, right now, their chairman and publisher is A.G. Sulzberger, Arthur Gregg Sulzberger. He is a fifth generation descendant of, let me see, who was it? Adolf S. Ox. And he bought this newspaper in 1896. That family has owned this newspaper since the late 1800s. And this is actually considered a very credible source of media, owned by the same family. How they can ever claim to be unbiased in media, I don't know. But to me, something about that feels unethical, that you can own and operate a media source, and for that long. So whatever deeply held beliefs you and your family pass down to one another will inevitably find their way into your media and of course, spawn into the minds of hundreds of thousands, possibly even millions of readers and viewers. So then I said, well, why would he have any issue with Harry and Meghan? You know, like, why would they consistently publish these negative, nasty articles by a varying amount of reporters? So it's not just one reporter saying nasty things about Harry and Meghan. So then I zoomed out and I was like, well, tell me more about Arthur Gregg. And I started looking and I realized his sister, the publisher and chairman of the New York Times, who was publishing all of these nasty articles about Harry and Meghan, his sister is Annie Sulzberger. Who is Annie Sulzberger? She is the head of the research for the show The Crown on Netflix. I don't know if you remember this, but I went on a couple of days worth of tangents after I watched and reviewed The Crown. It's still under my royal review. And I watched and reviewed the last season of The Crown because that's a show I've been into for a long time. This last season pissed me off. I'm going to self-edit, but if you can follow me here, it pissed me the off. And I got on that mic and I had to re-record my video several times because I was like, nobody wants to hear you caterwauling. You better pull it in. You better get it together. Do not do this, Sharion. I was pissed because they depicted Harry, a young Harry too, teenage Harry, child Harry. They always depicted Harry as aloof, like he was an idiot, like he was sloppy. They always made sure to show his room being, and I don't mean a mess, like a normal teenage or young adult boy, an adolescent. I don't mean just like normal shit hanging around, like, you know, noodle packages on the ground and stuff like that. I mean, you know, Harry himself will probably tell you, like, when Meghan first saw his home, she was surprised, but she definitely helped him get his home together. So he's a bachelor, and at the time of the filming that I'm telling you about, the kid was depicted as a kid, and the home was nasty. His room was nasty. There's kind of an understanding that boys are gonna be boys in their room. They're gonna have a little mess everywhere. I have brothers and cousins and all kind of whatnot. But when I tell you they depicted Prince Harry as practically rolling out of a damn royal dump truck, and I was pissed about it. They had pizza crusts. Now I'm gonna be embarrassed as hell if Harry come out and say, actually, SharionSade, that is how my bedroom looked. Carry on. I'm going to feel so stupid. But just know, until that day, I'm going hard for you, Harry. Me and the Duke of Sussex right here, because I'm always going to defend Meghan's husband. But no, they showed his bedroom as a mess. They showed him as sloppy. They showed him receiving a phone call and barely being able to get out of bed. They showed him face down drunk all the time. They showed Harry as if he were some kind of slob kebab. And I did not appreciate that. They always gave William the upper hand and the advantage. It was very, very, very clear that they had a very clear bias. And I'm glad I reviewed that in real time so you can go back and check it out. But it was clear that whoever created the show, the writers and the researchers, had a very clear bias against Harry specifically. And they also chose to stop the show right before the introduction of Harry and Meghan as a couple. the biggest royal couple of all time. That not only is that a ridiculous decision to make because many of the fans of the crown were waiting on that, but it's also a terrible business decision because people would have paid to see the actress you chose to play Meghan alone. People would have paid for that. People would have gotten a subscription to Netflix for that alone. So I was very disappointed in the crown. And when I found out Annie Sulzberger was one of the researchers, and I have a whole article that I pinned beneath of her giving an interview about the research methods used for the show. And of course, they took creative liberties in the writing team. So it's not all on her, but to find out that she is head of research for a show that painfully got it wrong for Harry in The Crown. And then her brother is the publisher and the chairman of their family's newspaper, which just happens to be one of the biggest media publications of all time, the New York Times. And their family has owned that publication since 1896. No new blood, no fresh eyes, nothing. They've owned it since 1896, and they have been on a tear for years, publishing the nastiest articles of Harry and Meghan. It's one of those things that when you realize it, like, wow, this is a brother and sister on opposite ends of the spectrum looking to mar this couple and make them look terrible, or at least one member of the couple, i.e. Harry, and make them look terrible. And that's when I realized, I remember somebody saying everything is connected. And I'm always mindful to not lean too heavily on these quotes or these little sayings or what have you, because I never want to get into like too heavy of a conspiracy territory. I want to always maintain my objectivity and be willing to research and look into things, etc. But I'm starting to realize damn near everything is connected, especially in the media. Nothing is by accident. Nothing is a fluke. Nothing is a one-off. And it just seems like perhaps this family, being that they go so far back in the media, and being that we know the royal family is obsessed with the media and they have had their invisible contract for a long time. And that is not just British media. They have to maintain their image globally, specifically with allied countries, i.e. the US. It would not be a stretch, although I am saying this moment, I am speculating, but I'm letting you follow my thought process here. It wouldn't be a stretch to believe that they have a reason or some kind of incentive to make the rest of the royals look good. So anyone who goes against that, they have an incentive to make them look bad, which would then, if you zoom back in, would make a lot of sense as to why the head researcher of The Crown would want to make Harry look like a slop kebab piece of shit, despite him having a whole book that shares his life that would be way more vital to writing the story of the royal family than any other book outside of his mother's, which neither of which portrayed him as an idiot, airheaded slob kebab. But that's beside the point. I would love to know what source she used to figure that out about Harry, because I can't find it. So please, by all means, provide it to me. Not anything that depicts him as just a regular young man finding his way, but something that would depict him as an absolute dumbass in the way that they portrayed him in that show, which was my final straw. In addition to them giving Charles an extremely sympathetic edit and giving Diana a very difficult, troubled woman edit. Don't get me started. So anyway, realizing that this brother-sister duo seems to have, I can't say it's an agenda. It could just be a massive coincidence. They may just be people who are like, we just don't happen to like them, or we're indifferent, or neither of which, we just happen to like the other, so we always give them more. That could be the case, but that doesn't explain 15 articles in 5 days, all of which, or the majority of which, are extremely negative about one couple. It's really sad and pathetic. And then you have to wonder, what's the incentive here? What do you even get out of this? Meghan is American, so what do you even get out of this? Anyway, I didn't want to dissect just one article because I didn't know much about the Sulzberger family, but this sent me down a massive rabbit hole, which is why this video is going to be short. And I'm going to get back to minding my business because anyway, for any of my conspiracy theorists out there, you're welcome to share what you know in the comment section below. But I was so disappointed in seeing all the articles. I didn't click on any of them, but I was so disappointed in seeing all the articles that were painting Harry and Meghan in a negative light. I just needed to know more. So while it isn't the Murdoch family that owns this publication, it's the Sulzberger family, which is their own media dynasty. It does go to show that there are different people in different positions, particularly in leadership or very serious positions in media across the spectrum, that are aligned in their mission. that may or may not have partaken in the invisible contract, or at least they have some kind of bias and favoritism that they have no problem expressing, that also has a negative impact on the way they cover Harry and Meghan, even their own American. But racism trumps all. Can't say that these people are racist. I'm just saying it's so interesting that a brother and sister would have two completely different domains in media and still manage to misrepresent one of two people in a relationship, or even both, but paint the rest of their family in a positive light. A family who is literally the most unethical group of bigots I've ever seen or talked about. Anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, but this is why I do not partake in the New York Times. I'm glad to have had this reminder. I'm going to continue my deep dive into the Sulzberger family, because at this point, I'm just very curious. But again, I just want to reiterate, this could all just be coincidence and speculation. I really don't know. I don't know if they're part of the invisible contract. I can't see why they wouldn't be, being that they are a prominent media fixture, excuse me. So I am curious what you know, if you would like to share in the comment section below. But I just thought that was an interesting connection, and I'm pretty sure I'll discover more as I deep dive. I will likely put any future videos regarding this topic over on Patreon. But until then, that is all I have for y'all. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you haven't already, please don't forget to go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and feel free to share so that more people can find us. And I will see you next time. Bye.